Hello and welcome. I'm your host, William Lou. This is the Raptors Reaction Podcast brought to you by Betway for all your sports betting activities. Hit the QR code that you see here on the screen or follow the link that you see to the description of the podcast episode. Raptors lose. Once again, no surprise here, but playing on the road in New York City, Raptors lose 112-98. I gotta say, in both cases, it was not as close as the final score sounded because the Raptors' third unit, big shouts to Boucher, did make a personal 10-0 run at one point to really cut into what was obviously a more lopsided score. The Knicks totally dominated the second half, and they dominated because Tibbs even pulled his starters towards the end of the game and actually let the third stringers play. And Chris didn't really go on a personal 10-0 run against the Knicks, but he had 10 points in less than 2 minutes and had several good plays in a row. So the deficit wasn't as bad. But, at the same time, even with the Raptors going down 20 plus, this is now 7 of their last 8 games now that they've been down 20 plus, which obviously is a concerning trend. I gotta say, I'm coming to this one at least a little bit more positive. Maybe that's just because I'm a little bit too tired of just going in on the team all the time, and quite frankly, the team kind of, it is what it is. Everyone kind of knows that this team is struggling. But I actually liked the signs of life that I saw in the first quarter. I'm going to touch on 3 things. We're going to get to a break, and then of course I'm going to bring back Alex Wong for the second half of the show. We're going to answer your questions, so leave those questions in the comments of the live chat here. Of course, hit a like for the stream as well. So I want to give you 3 things. We're going to get to a break, and then we're going to get to your questions with Alex. Number 1, I actually do like the fight that the Raptors showed in the first half here. I think it's very important that the Raptors show some type of response. After the game, when the Raptors lost the last one at home, RJ Barrett comes to the podium and he says, "This is unacceptable. We don't have any excuses. We got to play better than this." And so, especially on the defensive end, I think that's where you can take the most accountability. Offensively, I don't really see that many Raptors playing selfishly pretty much ever. I think that's obviously the biggest credit to Darko and his coaching staff, and the culture they're trying to build here is that they do share the ball. Sometimes, obviously, that leads to turnovers, but ultimately, they're willing to share the ball. So, you're not seeing a lack of accountability on the offensive end. On the defensive end, though, you see lots of plays where the Raptors have just not given the required effort over the last few weeks here, and that's why the Raptors have been, once again, down huge in 7 of the last 8 games here as they continue to sort of rack up more losses towards the tank. If you come out and one of the leaders of the team, and obviously, RJ is one of the 3 leaders of the team, and he comes out and he says, this was unacceptable, we got to play better. I'm going to need to see the accountability, especially on the defensive end. And in the first half, I actually saw that. Now, of course, the Knicks are a great offensive club. They're one of the best in the league at that. So they're going to score on you. Cat's a cheat code, all that sort of proved true over the course of the game. But I actually really liked some, defensive moments that I saw from these guys in the first half in particular. One of the ones I liked the most, Immanuel Quickley, sprinting across the baseline, jumping, leaping, blocking a corner 3, landing out of bounds. And that's the type of hustle that he was showing in his homecoming to New York. Obviously, that his career started there with New York. He's beloved by Knicks fans. He had a really good game tonight. A nice bounce back game because he's been struggling. But more than anything else, you need to see him take on the challenge defensively. Tonight, he had to guard Jalen Brunson, or somebody he's probably guarded in practice a million times over the years. I think that he actually really rose to the challenge. He played really tough tonight. Obviously, that didn't stop Brunson, but I thought he did a really good job playing that matchup to a relative even. And I think, again, him diving out of bounds to block a shot on the 3, that's a shot that's a bit of hustle that I've rarely seen to that degree from IQ. So that was really good from him. On Scottie, the next play down, this is all in the second quarter. Scottie's playing against Cat in the second unit. Of course, somebody's got to guard Cat when Jakob's off the floor. And Scottie had to take on that job, which is a difficult job. Cat's really good, and he had a game-high 27 tonight. But, seeing Scottie front Cat and deny him the ball and try to work on that front relentlessly just to sort of not allow him to get the ball, that was nice. But even nicer was, on the moments where, okay, you get fronted, a shot goes up, you give up an offensive rebound. Of course, you're putting yourself out of position for the rebound when you're fronting a guy like that. But at the same time, then Scottie fighting to get back into position and Cat sort of using an off arm, pushing him off. Scottie eating the push off there. I think that's a really good moment of fight and of like actual accountability on the defensive end, forcing the push off as well. I think that's one of two push offs by Cat in the game. Then at the start of the game, I thought this was really nice. First play of the game, Knicks are trying to run some action going towards OG, who's getting covered by RJ Barrett. And RJ did a great job denying the first pass over the top. Then OG tries to go back door, and RJ sticks with him and picks off the pass. And, those are your three guys, and those three guys need to show you those moments. And, of course, it shouldn't be so notable that they play like that because of the fact that these are your leaders. You need to see them play like this on a consistent basis, set the tone for the whole team. It shouldn't be noteworthy that they've had some hustle plays. That should be the expectation. But at the same time, those things were really good. Or like Scottie Barnes with 2 help blocks at the basket, recognizing obviously that, the Knicks clearly have some size advantages across the board. OG's bigger than RJ. Cat obviously is super mobile, and of course Raptors playing smaller, especially with Kelly. You know what I mean? Like there's lots of weaknesses, but Scottie making sure to help at the basket a couple of times. That was also really good. Scottie helped block at the rim against Isaiah Hartenstein, Josh Hart. And that forcing a shot clock violation because the Raptors made 2 rotations, got Hart getting downhill towards the end of the clock, threw up a floater, and Scottie was right there for another block at the rim. That was also really good. Small things that I really liked, and this is obviously not from the leaders of the team, but I like this from Darko because obviously we've seen Davion Mitchell taken out of the starting lineup, and obviously with the team getting healthier. Then he's out of the rotation in general with the whole team healthy now, right? They're basically saying that we're going to develop Jamal Shead. He's more important. But at the same time, this is when I can tell that Darko wants to win because with 6 seconds left in the first half, Davion had not played up to this point. 6 seconds left, the Knicks have the final ball. Raptors sub in Davion Mitchell to put him in, and what does Davion do? Obviously, he's off the bench. He could be unhappy. He's been playing a lot this season. What does he do? He pressures Jalen Brunson all the way from the backcourt, literally rides him the entire way. Brunson does a chicken wing, pushes him off, no call. It literally sends Davion flying into the stanchion. And then that led to a missed shot by the Knicks because of the pressure defense for Davion Mitchell. He played 6 seconds in the first half, and he came in for a stop. And that's why the Raptors were still in this game at halftime, because they were playing that hard defensively. They were down 4 points at half. Raptors were doing an okay job offensively as well. I thought, RJ had a really hot start. Of course, he faded a lot, and towards the end, definitely OG got the best of him. I mean, OG kind of bullied him a lot in the fourth quarter. IQ, I thought he did a really good job sort of managing the game in the second quarter as well. Him and Scottie sort of taking turns leading the offense. Scottie here or there sort of picking up the moments to score. He had a nice play where he went one-on-one against OG. Floor was spaced. Did a crossover, put it behind his back, drove OG into the middle of the lane, then faded away for a short turnaround jumper. Stuff like that where he's in the paint shooting those short jumpers. That seems to be a formula that he's been following a lot more recently as well. That was good. You saw Jakob occasionally as an option in the pick and roll, not going all the way to the basket. To be honest, I thought, Jakob has not played as physically as he needed to be since coming back from injury. But at the same time, the pick and pops and the little, not the pick and pops, but the pick and, I guess the short roll where he can sort of throw up that little soft floater. Those were good things. And the Raptors were actually doing, for the most part, a decent job in the first half. And they were right there. Of course, you expected the Knicks, especially at home, especially after losing a couple of games, and the pressure that comes with playing in New York, and also just the quality on their team. Of course, they're going to turn it around. And of course, that third quarter, the Knicks started pouring on a little bit. They start establishing the lead. By the time the fourth quarter comes around, they're, pushing it, past 20 points. And that's where, both the Knicks and the Raptors both realized the game was decided at that point. The Raptors obviously didn't have enough to counter. I got to credit the Knicks too. OG played really, really good defense in particular. But even guys like Cat was getting stops at the basket. Harden, why do I want to say Hartenstein? It's probably because I was watching Thunder Cavaliers also while this game was going on. But Josh Hart also did a great job of pushing the pace. But I think more than anything else, you actually saw a good first half. And I know the Raptors were down 20 plus, and I know that, this has sort of been a very concerning pattern. But at least when you're going to call for the accountability, at least show me some type of fight. You know what I mean? That was a little disappointing when the Raptors lost that game to Memphis when they gave up 155. And then the next game they come back home to Toronto and they commit 31 turnovers and lose to Atlanta. I didn't see any fight in that game. And when you saw the starters available together at once, they still lose. I didn't see enough fight in that game either. And of course, that's just not me as some random nobody on the online yelling at them. It's also the players themselves. They are there, they're agreeing with the fact that that's unacceptable, and it doesn't really matter if they fight. Like RJ said, if they fight hard and they lose, that's somewhat acceptable. Which honestly, eventually that should be unacceptable, right? You should really obviously push for wins, but we all know what the season's about. If they fight hard and they lose, it is what it is, right? Where we can at least sort of like try to build from there. What can happen is they don't fight. And at least today, I thought in the first half, they showed great fight. Of course, eventually in the second half, fight's not going to be enough. The Knicks have different levels of quality, and the Raptors were able to match that. That's okay for me. But at least today, I saw a game that was at least somewhat useful, especially on the evaluation purposes for the team going forward. I think one guy who really struggled, and this is going to be a trend now because it's been happening for the last few games, outside of the Brooklyn game, is Grady Dick. Grady Dick was really good against the Brooklyn Nets, but outside of that, the last 2-3 weeks here, he's really slowed down. You don't even necessarily need to look at the stats. You just need to sort of look at the comparison between how effective, how aggressive he was, and honestly, how effective he was in the first 2-3 weeks of the season when he was, 1A, 1B with RJ Barrett, as the Raptors are super banged up without Scottie, without IQ. Grady at that moment versus Grady now a few months later is two different players. Grady Dick right now, I feel like certainly the shots are not dropping nearly as much for him. He's certainly not getting his number called as much. A lot of that you can expect. Number one, he was shooting lights out to start the season, especially from mid-range. That's obviously starting to drop off a little bit to like just more reasonable averages. I think the other part is he's not getting his number called a lot, which, you know what? When the rest of the starters were Davon Mitchell, who's not going to take many shots as the point guard, and he's mostly going to try to set guys up, and it's Ochai, who's mostly a transition guy or like in the corners, waiting to get the ball, or maybe making a cut to the basket here or there. And then it's also RJ running pick and roll with Jakob. Grady's going to get a ton of looks, and they're going to run every sort of out of bounds play for him. Right now, they're not doing nearly the same thing for him. They're obviously prioritizing with IQ back, with Scottie back, with RJ back, and with Jakob healthy. Those are going to be the guys that do most of the play creation. That means that you need to see the secondary skills pop out for Grady. Number one, you need to see him obviously knock down the open threes that he has, and he hasn't really shot it particularly great from three. Tonight he was 1 of 6 from the field, 1 of 4 from three. The other thing is the secondary skills now need to come out. Now it's like, okay, what do you do on defense? Because obviously you're not doing that much offensively because you're not as important offensively. Or what are you doing on defense? What are you doing to set up other guys to be able to score? And on those fronts, that's where you're starting to see what's next for Grady. Number one, I think with him being such a credible threat to shoot, I know he didn't shoot well today, but teams still guard him like crazy. You need to be able to use that and leverage that as a screener and create opportunities and create space for your teammates and make shots different and make shots easier for his teammates. I don't feel like, even though Grady right now is a guy who's respected as a shooter, I don't feel like he's fully leveraging his gravity to set up his teammates just yet. Of course, some of that's due to the coaching as well, in terms of just like getting them in the right spots, his teammates in terms of using him. But regardless, that's an area of an improvement going forward. Turning his gravity into scoring, even for his team, even when it's not scoring for Grady Dick. The other part, which is way more important, is defensively. He is just giving it up to anybody right now. It's really, really tough to watch it. Other teams like Mikal Bridges back cutting him very easily. The Knicks don't even cut that much. For my liking, I feel like the Knicks can even do more of that. They're doing more of that this season, but especially with the shooting that they have in that starting five and the size and the passing, I feel like they should be doing way more cutting than what they already do. But like getting back cut, is just an obvious sign that he was a step slow and he's a step sort of like not focused. Of course, one-on-one defense, guys kind of go at him. Knicks are really trying to target him. The Raptors obviously having to send some doubles his way as well to bail them out. My point is, if he is now going to be a role player versus a featured player, those secondary skills now need to be very, very prominently there. And right now, his defense and also his basically just the rest of his game has not really been there. Now, of course, I'm not going to harp on the shooting because I know he's a great shooter and I know his percentages will come back up. And I know that he's a guy who can make and take a lot of shots. Those things that he's already proven earlier this year. But with the starting lineup as is, that's not going to be his role. That's not going to be his job. And if he's going to help the team, and honestly, he's going to help himself, because this is the thing. Darko's also, you can tell, he's actually trying to coach better for results. It's not just purely for development. That's why you see Grady Dick getting benched repeatedly now in games, because he has not been performing repeatedly in games. And Darko is actually actively looking for other guys to get those minutes. Earlier on the season, you might say, well, it's development, whatever. But now he's got options. if he's not playing well, you got a veteran, Bruce Brown, sitting right there on the bench who can play the shooting guard position for you. Ochai Agbaji's already been knocked down to the bench because the team's getting healthier. Unfortunately, Ochai left this game today. He took a kind of a shot to the ribs from Josh Hart, and so hopefully he's going to be okay, but he did leave the game in the second quarter and was not able to return in the second half. Ochai has been the Raptors' Iron Man this season, the only player to play in all the games this year without getting injured, so hopefully he's okay, but he's obviously had his minutes reduced, but then again, he's also played a big part off the bench because Grady's been struggling. Ultimately, this is something for both Grady to figure out with the rest of the starting five, and also for the team to sort of figure out how to better use and also hide the strengths of Grady Dick. But right now, clearly, you're not seeing the best out of him. And I think number 3 is just like, the second unit is going to have to try to continue to develop some sort of identity. That's where, for me, like, I understand, like, okay, a lot of these guys haven't even played with each other, or the moments that they played with each other, like, how much of this is, like, them showcasing each other or whatever. Kelly's starting to continue to play a ton. I don't feel like, that's necessarily been that effective, although I have to say tonight he actually got a couple of plays here or there, but it felt like Precious also had him quite a bit. So when you get played to an even standstill by Precious, it's not that impressive. I feel like, obviously, Bruce Brown is coming off the bench here. He had one good game, but tonight he was also minus 16. More importantly, Jamal Shead, who was the backup point guard, and this is obviously the main thing with Davion getting, moved to the side here outside of, like, literally 2 shifts where he played, like, 10 seconds. And both times, by the way, he delivered defensively, so that was good. But you need to see something better from those guys. And I know that Jamal Shead and Jakob Poeltl are still getting chances to play here, and those things are good. And ultimately, there is a balance between giving some minutes to the rookies and giving them some time to feed them or whatever. But also, like, I'm also a very firm believer in you should have to earn these type of minutes. And when you are, and I don't mean that they haven't earned them to this point. I feel like Jamal's played well enough this season to get a look, for example, at backup point guard. And I think Jakob Poeltl has played well enough at moments this season to get a look as like the 9th, 10th guy here. But at the same time, to continue to earn these minutes, they cannot play as poorly as they did here. I didn't actually really mind what Jakobi did. He didn't make his shots, but he actually did a good job of pressuring the ball. The Raptors trusted him to guard Jalen Brunson, and he turned him a couple of times in transition. I liked his on-ball defense. That's always been something a bit stronger for him, especially when you look at his long-term outlook. If he can get that shot together, if he gets more consistent offensively with his defensive profile, like, could he be a better option, for example, to be that 5th starter instead of Grady Dick? I think it's a little premature right now because, Jakobi is just a rookie, and also Grady has shown you a lot at the start of the year. But at the same time, that is something to monitor moving forward because the Raptors obviously do have 2 shooting guard prospects who can fill that role. And at that point, it's just about fit. It's not about the motions or whatever. The other thing is with Jamal Shead, to me, I thought this was a great opportunity for him to play tonight, but he really had a bad impact on this game. The passing for him, it looks a little scared. It looks a little hurried. He continues to sort of throw a lot of bad pass turnovers, which I think is especially damning for a point guard. That's something for him where he's either rushing or he's a little too anxious, or, I'm not totally sure what it is. Maybe he's just an inaccurate passer. Maybe we didn't watch enough of it in Houston. I don't think necessarily that was like a big item in the scouting report, but perhaps at the NBA level because of the size and the quickness and the athleticism, whatever. My point is he's got to get over that because right now that's something within his own control. His passing right now is a little bit too erratic to be a point guard. And I think that's sort of, artificially bringing down the productivity of the second unit. But ultimately, they actually did fight a lot harder in the first half. I did like a lot of things of what I saw. Ultimately, they lost by 20. Everyone knew that the Raptors going to MSG is going to be a loss. Again, the Raptors have 1 win on the road this season. They're 1 and now 16 away from home. Like, this is just kind of how it goes. And surprise, surprise, when the Raptors play Cleveland tomorrow, they're going to lose that one as well. And it'll probably be another 20, 30-point deficit. By the way, Cleveland just beat OKC as well, snapping OKC's 15-game win streak. Cleveland is now 32-4. Like, that's ridiculous, man. 32-4. Think about that, right? You times that by 2. That's basically the record. Like, they're on pace for over 70 wins. Like, it's really impressive. And that was obviously the game of the night. But still, I need to see some fight and need to see some effort. And tonight, at least, I saw more of that. Now, of course, is the ceiling high enough for this group? That's to be determined. Maybe you leave me that in the chat, because to me, I'm like, okay, they're playing more competent today. It was a much more watchable game for me, especially. but at the same time, like, what are you seeing with the ceiling? What is special about the Raptors right now in terms of like, okay, we finally got them playing at a more competitive level. What is special about the BBQ core that you want to see or that you have seen? Maybe leave me your comments there. But we're going to take a quick break. We're going to hear from our sponsors. And when we come back, we'll get to your questions and we'll get co-host Alex Wong in here to answer those questions.
Hey, man.
Hey, buddy.
Just recently hit the big 4-0. What about you, bro?
A little more recently 4-0, but we are both in the 40 club.
Let me tell you, man, being an adult really comes with its share of challenges.
Definitely. I think both you and I are homeowners, and I think we're both also dealing with mortgages in life.
Yeah, man, mortgage rates, choosing the right terms, dealing with paperwork, it can be really overwhelming,
I still don't know how that works.
Well, listen, that's where our friends at Dominion Lending Centers come in, man. They make the whole process simple and stress-free. Whether you're renewing your mortgage, hunting for the best rates, or if you just need advice, they're here to help, bro.
You know what? I am looking for that advice, and I think that's why I'm going to visit www.dominionlending.ca.
Yeah, man. www.dominionlending.ca. Take the guesswork out of your mortgage and step into financial confidence with our friends at Dominion Lending by our side.
All right, big thanks to Dominion Lending. And now it is time for the Tangerine fan inbox. And I got to let you know that Tangerine is the official bank of the Toronto Raptors, a foundational partner of WNBA Canada and NBA Canada. And of course, they're not just fans of basketball, they're fans of basketball. They're fans of fans who stand 5 inches from the TV all game, fans of fans who have their own nickname for each guy in the starting five, or fans who can recreate every player's layup package while sitting on their couch. And if you're hearing this, there's no doubting your commitment. Fans like you are at the heart of what makes this game great. So for this year, for the Raptors' 30th anniversary, Tangerine is turning the spotlight from the court to the stands to celebrate in the way Raptor fans support their team, because this is how we fan. To learn more, visit tangerine.ca/basketball. I see actually a big discussion in here in the chat about fandom and Raptors fandom right now. So maybe we actually take some questions about Raptors fandom just in general and sort of the behavior that or maybe the maturation of Raptor fans over the years. But let's bring in producer, co-host Alex Wong. What's going on, my brother? What are the streets saying right now?
Hey, man, got a couple of key stats for you before we get to questions. Some key numbers for you, okay?
Okay.
45, that's the number of Raptors games left this season.
Jesus.
That's
a lot.
Oh, okay.
That's a lot of games.
We better not clip that for Tangerine.
Okay.
And zero people have called for Pat Delaney to be fired tonight. So
wow.
Those are the key numbers for you.
Pat Delaney gave a nice little post mid-game interview. You know, when they interview the assistant coaches coming out of halftime?
Yep.
That's my favorite segment, too. It's just like, yo, man, what does Ivo Simovic want the Raptors to do in the second half? I'm like, all right, man.
Oh, man. All right. You want positive or negative questions to start?
I feel like I've been pretty positive, right, in this episode so far. I mean, I think people probably expected more angry Asian dad and didn't give them that. So let's start with a little bit more negative. Or critical, let's say.
Critical. Okay, let's go.
All right. Chris asks, do you think Darko can actually build a culture on the defensive end? It would seem you need to hold people accountable to do that. And through 1.5 seasons, we have yet to see him hold them accountable. What do you think, Alex?
Man, I mean, we've talked about this. I think, first of all, I'm going to call him Darko Rajakovic now. I think it's just a question between personnel and coaching, right? Like it's both things. Like I think coming into the season, when you were looking at the roster, like was anyone that optimistic about what they were going to do on the defensive end? I think a lot of the optimism was going to come from the fact that if they were going to win any games, that they were going to be maybe like a top 10 offense, maybe better, like having the fully healthy starting lineup. So I don't know if any coach can come in and with this roster right now and build a good defense. But at the same time, I'm not going to excuse Darko and, Pat Delaney, I guess, who's getting thrown under the bus.
Let's just stop talking about the assistants, bro. The buck does not stop with the assistant coach.
But I'm not gonna say that the coaching staff can just like get away with it just because it's a rebuilding season. The defensive effort is just not there on so many of these nights. And I understand why fans are so frustrated to the point where you see it in the chat a lot now too. the questions are coming in about like, hey, are the players actually still responding to Darko? Which I think it's a valid question, but it's also like you have to think about it. It's like human nature. Like you're 8-29 on the season. I just checked, so they're 9 games out of the play-in, so we don't got to worry about.
I've never even thought about the play-in. Play-in for what, man? No,
but
seriously, play-in for what?
I know there were some people who were worried that the Raptors were going to back into a play-in spot.
Oh, word?
This season, like coming into the season, but don't worry.
I don't know, man. The Detroit Pistons, yeah, they want to
got
us.
This year. The Bulls got us. Like we'll be fine.
Oh, the Bulls going to be in the play-in, buddy. I mean, like, when are they not in the play-in?
But it's just human nature too. When you're like 8-29, bottom of the standings, I know it's a harsh thing to say, but it's like, do you actually expect the players to come out and give that full effort and fight for all? Like, like I'm not saying they're not trying, but it's like when you get to this point in the season, this is not the first tanking team that we've watched. This is probably the first Raptors tanking team that we've watched in a long time.
I saw Tampa.
Yeah, Tampa too. But Tampa was kind of like the season slipped away, like, and then like this is like just a full on like whole year program to like not win. But it's like we've watched other tanking teams before. This is inevitably what happens in the middle of the season. Which I guess it's like it's just really hard to answer these questions when you're in a rebuilding season because it's a combination of a lot of things.
So my thing is you have every excuse that you want to use, right? And it's just a question of whether or not you accept those excuses or not. You can give the excuse that the Raptors are young and therefore they're going to make mistakes, or, the Raptors are tanking and so therefore they might not be trying as hard as they want every game to win. Or you can say that the Raptors have suffered injuries, or you can say that the Raptors have not had the personnel a lot of nights to sort of compete with sort of like just how good the league is offensively. It's just really a matter of whether or not you want to accept that excuse or not. Because I feel like what's in the Raptors' control is the amount of hustle and effort that they can give and how together they are defensively. I see teams around the league taking excuses and accepting them and sort of rolling with it. Or I see teams defiantly playing in spite of those excuses. You know who's actually a younger team than the Toronto Raptors is the Houston Rockets.
Yeah, so there's actually an interesting comment as a follow up to this in the chat too of asking just like what here I'll pull it up. So it's basically how did Ime turn the Rockets around and not Darko for the Raps? Now,
well, you can argue that obviously they signed Fred, right? They got Dylan Brooks. Those two guys are better defensive players as compared to like IQ and RJ. On the defensive end at least for those two guys.
Yeah,
but also at the same time, that doesn't account for the rest of the team, and we know what Ime is. I remember Ime coming to Toronto like 3 weeks ago, or 2 weeks ago, when the Rockets were in town, and like sitting in that pregame press conference, and I'm like, this guy got a crazy intimidating aura, man. Like it's like you either do what he says or you're not gonna play. Like Reed Shepard was just a 3rd overall pick of this year's draft, right? Remember, in the Ringer pods, they were like Russillo and was like pushing him like, why shouldn't he be the number 1 pick, right? And you know what? He goes out in Summer League, he dominates. And whatever, it's Summer League, but it's still a first impression of a guy, and he looked great. The guy doesn't even play. The guy's in the G League. The guy just went down to the G League and put up 49. And I don't even know if he's going to play tomorrow. Probably not for the Houston Rockets.
Great mustache too, by the way. Yeah.
Great mustache. Certainly looks like he works for one of the big 4. He might be an Ernst & Young type. But my point is that like that's the standard that they sort of hold over there. Same thing with Orlando. Everybody sort of plays up to their standard defensively. It doesn't matter who's out there and who's available. And that sometimes makes the teams just elevate even above sort of what they have at that moment. I think for the Raptors, like, you can choose to take all these excuses you want. And honestly, the Raptors have not had anything handed to them. It's not like he's fumbling a great defense. Maybe last year, that's the evidence you could point to is like, wait, hold on. Last year, we did have Jakob. We did have OG. We did have Pascal. We did have Dennis, who is at least a really good pressure defender, at least on the ball. Maybe the rest of the team defense, maybe not as good, but still like a pretty good guy picking up the ball full court. And then also Scottie around the starting 5. That team will also sucked on defense. But again, maybe you could say, well, extenuating circumstances. There's always going to be another excuse if you take it. The bottom line is the Raptors came into this season from Summer League to preseason to training camp to now into the year talking about we need to get better on defense. And you can give every excuse you want. Maybe they just suck on defense. Honestly, that's a huge thing too. Their personnel is not great on defense. but they just don't play it most nights. And this is why I tweeted middle of the game when the first half was almost over. Raptors are just holding themselves. That's what Dwayne Casey used to say. The Raptors just holding themselves. Because they showed me that they could play with intensity defensively. That first half, they played with intensity defensively. RJ was really handsy, did his best to sort of get disruptions. OG can fumble the ball a couple times. He did his best to sort of fight back against him. I thought IQ did a good job of like tailing around and pressuring Jalen Brunson when he needed to, and him blocking a shot. I mean, when have you ever seen IQ block a corner three and land in the stance? That's him fighting hard. Scottie, I think he's definitely the team's best defender, right? But like, he gave a lot of effort. He was really engaged too. Even a guy like Davion coming in for 2 shifts, that effort's there, and then it just drops away. And it's not just like giving the effort once in a while, but it's also the mentality of doing the whole game, especially when the other team starts pulling away. That's when you need to lock in even more defensively. So I think they're obviously bad on defense. They're 27th right now, and but they can certainly be more than this if they actually didn't take all the excuses given to them. And that's just my personal opinion, man.
I think the bigger question too is like, can you actually build a really good defensive team with Scottie, RJ, and IQ as your top players? We just need RJ to guard guys that have been traded for him, because he always gets up for OG.
Well, I mean, it's funny because
I've never seen RJ close out like that.
Yeah, no, I like that, right? Because that's like, what? He's back in the garden, I think there's a little bit personal, you know what I mean? Like, not like there's like any animosity, but you still have an extra motivation, you know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like, all right, what I saw from OG was like Bob, was like Don Draper versus Bob in season 6 of Mad Men. Like, I don't think about you at all. I'm just gonna keep playing my game, and eventually I'm gonna win out the game.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah,
you know what I mean.
All right.
So it can't be an if. Like, you have to do it every game. You just have to.
Yeah, I feel like we're gonna be having this conversation after tomorrow. Taylor Vault wants to know, anybody know our win-loss record for challenges this year? Losing one in the first half of the game is inexcusable. So I believe they mentioned on the broadcast that Darko at that point was 10-16 on the season in challenges, which I needed fact checked.
That feels way too low, because the Raptors have played like 37 games now.
37.
Something like that?
Yeah. Well,
like that's like less than one every 2 games.
Well, it was just a hilarious challenge that he made in the first half. There was 6 seconds left, and Jakob gets called for a foul because I guess he shoved Precious going for the rebound.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like the Knicks were shooting free throws or anything. It was just side out.
Yeah.
And so Darko just challenged it and lost. But there was just like no reward to that challenge.
Well,
it was just such a low risk. I don't know, man.
I actually, if anybody can tell me like what's the best place to find like guaranteed, verified coaches challenge data, I would really love to see it. The closest thing I saw to this was on StatMuse. You could put in a query, and so I put in who has the least coaches challenges won this season, or who has won the least coaches challenges this season. And the results I have pulled up, I'm going to read from the bottom. Okay, Doug Christie has only won 5, although I got to say he's only managed the team for 6 games, so that doesn't really count. At this rate, he's going to be one of the best in the league at coaches challenges. Next behind him is Brian Keefe at number 6. Brian Keefe, who I ultimately, if you had to put a gun to my head and say, is Brian Keefe an NHL coach or an NBA coach?
I'm just going to guess by default that that's the Washington Wizards head coach.
That is the Washington Wizards head coach, is Brian Keefe. Yeah. Okay. He's won 6 challenges this year, according to StatMuse.
So almost as many games as wins. Yeah. Almost as many challenges as wins. Yeah.
We should see the correlation between those two. The next one is Willie Green at 7 for the New Orleans Hornets.
Poor old Willie in New Orleans gets one Zion 360 dunk every 2 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Darko. It says here 8. Now, of course, I don't know what the number is because the broadcast also mentioned 10, and this says 8 here. But my point is, if this list is only accurate up to a certain date, he's still bottom 3 in the league up to that date.
Darko's never seemed like he had a good knack of just like timing or making a good read on what challenges are actually worth it. And I think it hasn't really stood out. I mean, it has stood out to the point where people are calling it out, but I don't think it has stood out because the Raptors just haven't played meaningful games under Darko.
Yeah. You know what, actually? Yeah. I take this whole segment back because this might just be their wins on the season. What? All right, never mind. Don't use that muse.
Did
Don't use
Stat
that
Muse
muse.
just lie to us?
Don't use that muse. This is not great. My point is, okay, just Jerome, do not clip this any segment. Sorry to the audience, because I've just realized in real time, I'm like, wait, hold on, that doesn't make any sense.
Yo, that's amazing.
Stat Muse, I typed in that query, and that's the result they gave me. My point is actually what the challenge is just like, there is actually a cost to losing the challenge. Not necessarily like losing the challenge itself, whatever, but you're losing one of your timeouts. And I do feel like if you only get 7 timeouts in a game and you lose one really frequently, there is obviously a drawback to that. The other part is like, is there an actual leverage play and strategy with these sort of like challenges? And I think maybe if you just like found the most robust way to use this challenge is probably the best strategy moving forward. I didn't really think, for example, Nick was particularly good at the challenges either with the Raptors.
Right.
I think for me, you should. I don't necessarily want to save the challenge to the end of the game type. You know what I mean? Like that's certainly one strategy where it's like don't use the challenge until the end of the game and then sort of use it in a high leverage moment. There's that argument. I don't think that that's a bad argument. The other argument I feel like is just use the challenge on the play that can give you the biggest swing in point differential. Right. So like if you go in for an and one in the first quarter and they rule it out because they say it's a charge. But then you obviously have your review staff over there, somebody with the iPad clicks, rewind 10 seconds and says, the guy's still moving, so you should use a challenge. I don't mind doing that in the first quarter, especially now that you get 2 chances at it. Or the challenge, obviously you keep it if you make the first one right, because that gives you a +3 rather than like, or I guess a potential to be +3 on a play like that. But yeah, I don't see one consistent pattern, and it's certainly a like Jakob pushing Precious to end the first half, like that's a nothing play. There's like there's not high leverage, nor is it high like plus value. Yeah.
I don't know what the point was of challenging that, but yeah, but we'll just blame it on Pat Delaney. All right, next up.
What's up? Well, I would like you to see. Would you like to see Shed in the G League and put Davion back in the rotation, or should Shed develop in these hard NBA minutes? I don't know. I think that's a fair question. I think of late, I think Davion has played better than Jamal. I don't think Davion has played so much better than Jamal, though, that he for sure warrants having the minutes over him. It's like even though obviously I would say that it's just not enough of a marginal difference for me, I probably still lean development in this case. I also just really like Jamal. I actually really like Davion as well. I feel like he obviously, invests himself really heavily on the defensive end. But it does seem to me that, like, yeah, obviously there's a long-term look that they want to do with Jamal. And at least running backup point, getting some continuity, him and Jacoby, for example, playing together for that second unit, like, there is some value in that. Granted, though, if he struggles for like 5 games in a row, like, I wouldn't mind him sort of getting swapped out, or even just with a break, even, for example. With Davion coming in, because at least with Davion we know sort of there's a more consistent baseline. He's not as erratic with the turnovers, and he's still really good on defense, if not even better than Jamal is on defense. But again, like, who cares? Actually, that should be the answer. It's like, it doesn't really matter that much, does it? No, I'm not trying to be rude. I just mean, like, it's not that big of a difference. It's not going to make or break the game.
All right, here's one trade proposal for you, Jakob Poeltl.
I love this
trade proposal. So this is trade proposal: Jakob Poeltl to Atlanta for Pancake Mamba, Clint Capella, who is expiring, Lakers 2025 first rounder, and Kobe Buffkin, who will never crack the rotation for Atlanta because he's been jumped by a bunch of other people.
Yeah, I actually did like Kobe a lot coming out of the draft as well. And the Raptors, I believe, brought him in for 2 workouts that year with the draft process, because he was taken, I think, 15th. Grady was taken 13th. That's not bad.
I mean, I will take it just on the strength of. I'll just take it on the strength of adding a first-round pick. I don't know.
Yeah, I think for Atlanta, I'd be curious to see if they want to do a trade like this. I mean, I think Jakob certainly is an upgrade over Clint, and obviously the Hawks are more competitive this year as compared to previous years. I feel like, though, that with Trey especially, it feels like he's such a good lob thrower, and it's like better to have a lob threat with him versus like having a short roll threat like Jakob. At the same time, Jakob does more probably over the course of the game than a Clint Capella does. It's not terrible. I do wonder if they will ultimately give up a first round pick and Kobe Buffkin. But then again, they've had Kobe in the program for 1.5 years. They don't really have minutes for him. They don't really have minutes for him in the foreseeable future either. Yeah, and Lakers first round pick too. I mean, like,
Yeah,
that's
well, the
not bad.
chat,
I probably will take this. I'm not gonna lie. I probably will take. I don't think, by the way, Capella. He's not a great fit in terms of what Darko wants to do with the team, but I don't know. I guess we're not really looking at fit when the team has 8 wins. You know.
yeah, the chat is saying, why would Atlanta do that? I guess it does feel like Atlanta's given up quite a bit there.
Okay, would you
Maybe
do
a
it
little
without Kobe, for example? Would you do it just for Capella and the Lakers?
Right, right. I think I think people have varying kind of valuations on like how they value Jakob like long term on this team. All right, let's stick
Okay.
with the trade
Like
talks here. Ash, why would anyone trade for Bruce Brown? 23 million, averaging 4 points a game. That's
okay.
2 points per Cowboy boot. So put some respect on 2022, 23 NBA champion Bruce Brown.
Do you think he had more value wearing the Cowboy hat versus wearing the Raptors headband?
I think he had more value the minute he was swapped here from Indiana. And
Yeah.
I think there was a window last year where they could have flipped him right away, right? Like they could have traded him at the deadline.
They could have. First
Right.
off, they could have flipped him when the time of the trade happened. You could involve it into a multi-team trade. Right. Now, of course, that actually was a multi-team trade because I think the Pelicans somehow got in there. We somehow got Kira Lewis for a game. But clearly there wasn't a chance to move, or they didn't like anything that they had available to them for Bruce Brown when the Pascal trade happened. That was in January. A month later at the trade deadline, despite me talking to Mark Stein every week, it was like, yo, Mark Stein, our NBA insiders on the line. Mark, you are one of the most prolific NBA reporters of all time. You're going to the Hall of Fame in Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame, but tell us what's the market for Bruce Brown? We were treating it like, it was Kawhi's free agency. Clearly, he didn't get moved at that deadline either. The talk obviously was of optionality. Raptors actually chose to pick up the option, right? It was a team option, I believe. So they actually opted into this. And of course, he did have the surgery at the start of the year. You can quibble with the timing, whatever. It's not exactly like Shaq saying, I got injured on company time, so I'm going to recover on company time. Like, I don't really, it doesn't really bother me as much. But at the same time, when he comes back to play, I think, look, Bruce Brown is a fine player. Obviously, he's coming off of the knee surgery. So, like, we got to see sort of him sort of play through it, get into shape, whatever. Like, obviously, the reconditioning stint kind of went on for a very, very long time. He can have some good moments. He can have some bad moments. I think his value is pretty much consistent, right? Like, his value is not even necessarily as much of what he does as the player, which I don't want to disrespect because he was a piece of a championship team. Like, the Nuggets play like pretty much 7-man rotation, and he was one of those 7 guys. Like, there's a real value in that. But also at the same time, the biggest value with Bruce Brown's contract is that it's a big expiring contract. It's not about the player. So I think the value of his deal doesn't really change no matter what he performs. Now, I would like to see him better than 4 points, but like I don't think teams are looking for that much,
Yeah, expiring contracts are back, man, in this new NBA, financial landscape. Yeah.
Remember when the Celtics kept trying to trade Rafe LaFrentz? That was like a big expiring for them, and then Troy Murphy.
They were just dangling him every year.
Yo, who wants the lefty shooter, man?
Are you happy with if just to get a second rounder for Bruce? What's your expectations for a Bruce Brown trade right now?
I mean, just a second rounder would be cool. Maybe like a
expectations.
Maybe like a C-level prospect. Like, for example, when the Raps got Ochai last year, he was probably like graded out to like a C-level prospect at that point. Like, maybe if he gets good, he'd probably be a rotation player for you rather than like an A-tier prospect's like he could be an all-star one day. A B-tier prospect's like he's probably going to be a starter for you. A C-tier prospect's like, he's got some warts, but maybe you can get him to the level of like a bench player, a rotation player, maybe a starter for you. And obviously that's panned out, so that's good. If you got an Ochai level prospect for Bruce and not that much long-term salary, I'm pretty happy to do it. Maybe you facilitate a trade, like now we're like, hey man, obviously Jimmy Butler's maybe getting traded, like, but maybe we slide Bruce Brown somewhere into that. You know what I mean? Like, just
what is that? Your Jay-Z voice?
Pardon me, I had to laugh at that.
Had to get Brad Beal to waive his no trade in a day.
Oh, brother.
All right.
It's not looking good for Jay either, by the way. So.
Anyways, shouts to Shin donating $5.14 for the Raptors' fourth quarter scoring drought tonight.
Yeah, Raptors went through a scoring drought. I'm not gonna lie, I probably missed a lot of that scoring drought because I was watching the fourth quarter between the Thunder and the Cavs.
Yeah, real basketball. Yeah.
That was a real hoop, man. Shouts to the Meatoff,
Yeah. So what?
Bernie Meatoff.
All right. So before we get to the awards, the New York Knicks with their win tonight are 25-13 on the season.
Mhm.
Looking pretty good. Third seed in the Eastern Conference. You know, my Orlando Magic are about to get healthy again. I saw Paolo Banchero is about to come back this weekend, so they might make a run. But Knicks right now, their adjusted over under is 53.5 wins, and on Betway, if you want to take the over, it's a pretty good odd at 1.95.
Okay.
This would just require the Knicks to pretty much play a little bit above 500 for the rest of the season, and I think they have way more potential than that, assuming they stay healthy, because Tibbs only plays 5 guys plus campaign and Landry, Shamet.
Hey, man, Shamet was giving us issues tonight, man.
Yeah. 53.5 over on the Knicks. What do you think?
It's really high. It's just a big
You think
number.
so?
Like, I think they can hit it. Like, they're kind of on pace to be in that range.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit high. I think the one thing for me to watch for is the Knicks have pretty much been healthy this entire season. No, like
sure.
Their starting five's the same every day.
Towns was
right?
out for a couple games. Like they've had like guys go out for a little bit. Yeah.
Right, but like nobody's missed like a month, for example, with that lineup. Because I do feel like that's kind of what happened with their season last year. The thing is that they were pretty consistent and still getting results even with losses last year in terms of to the personnel, and they kept winning and they reeled off a really nice win streak. I don't know. This is obviously the Knicks are a really good team, and if you feel really bullish on it, then take the over. But also at the same time, I do feel like this is a pretty accurate number for sort of where they're going to end up on the year. But
so
they're probably pretty much guaranteed to be third in the East.
Yeah, they need to go 29-15 the rest of the way to hit the over on this total. So yeah, if you like this bet, make sure you hit the QR code below and check out all your basketball betting odds on Betway.
There you go. Yeah, this is fun. You know, you having fun, Alex? You tell the truth, man. Did you?
Yeah. We're having a blast.
Did you watch Raps Knicks or did you watch Cavs?
I mean, come on, man. I'm out here talking about Darko's terrible challenges.
Okay,
so
all right.
You know I was tapped in.
Okay,
Landry Shamet, a little up and under. I thought he was going to throw it off the backboard to himself and dunk it on us at one point. Yeah.
Okay, let's
RJ really stepping up. You know, that little battle with OG. Too bad the Knicks just win every game now against us. So
they're way better than us, man. Let's not kid ourselves. Like they're so good.
Quick shout outs to Reginald in the chat. The Reginald who told me to get my Mike Singer book off the screen last time.
Oh,
every
brother.
time I see Reginald, I just can't stop laughing. Anyways, let's get to the awards because we got another Raptors game to deal with tomorrow.
Speaking of that, though, I want to take one last question from Ash. What's your score prediction against the Cavs? Raps play the Cavs tomorrow, obviously, on the road, too.
Yeah.
Cavs play tonight. Clearly, they won, whatever, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go 140-99. Yeah.
I know you're joking, but like that's like pretty within reason.
I'm actually not joking. I'm waiting for Betway to open their odds up for tomorrow so I can slam some money on the Cavs. Yeah,
it's got to be a little bit like it's okay. Obviously, the Raptors are where they are. Put all the caveats on, but like if you still have your full roster available, and you are still have somewhat of a decent amount of investment into this group, and you are going on the road and you're expecting them to lose by 40, and it's not an entirely unserious prediction, like that does not say a good thing about your team. It just doesn't, man. I mean, my only thing is I want Scottie to sort of like at least play Evan to somewhat of an even here. Evan Mobley, by the way, had a huge driving layup to clinch the game for Cleveland tonight. Honestly, like he's had an amazing season. At least give me some agenda, please, man. But yeah,
no agendas. Raptors. Yeah, I can't believe the Raptors have one single road win so far this season. I mean, I can totally believe it, but goddamn,
sure.
Can we just not finish 1-40 on the road?
Yeah, what's the worst ever road record?
I don't want to look at the standings and see a 1-40 in the road column. You know how embarrassing that is. I don't care about no tanking. I don't care about no Cooper Flag full length of the court dunk last night. You know, like I don't want a 1-40 record on the road.
Well, I mean, what if Cooper Flag does full length of the court dunks for us for like the next decade?
Can we at least go 3-38 on the road? Those are my road expectations right now.
You know what you sound like right now? You sound like the Nets could go 0 for 82, and I look at you like this shit gravy.
Yeah, that's what Darko is saying right now.
The Nets got a better record than us too.
This shit is poutine gravy, man.
Yeah.
No, man. Please, let's please try to get to 3 road wins this season. Yeah, I think that's the goal. Yeah.
Yo, well, I mean, it's. I don't know. Do you think they'll do it? They'll probably do it. Is that the new pizza party? 3 road wins.
One of these future pods will actually go through the rest of the road schedule, and just see when we're gonna be favored next. Because I really think even if you go into Washington, like I don't know, like I'm not trying to see Brian Keefe. You know, like I don't know what Brian Keefe has up his sleeve.
Yo, like, have you seen Washington lately? Obviously, they lose a lot, but like Alex Sarr is actually starting to turn around as a number 2 pick. Yeah, he's had some pretty decent games. They have some pretty athletic guys. You know, they have something called Belalcatraz.
Oh, okay. What?
Are you familiar with Belalcatraz?
Because he's locking people up.
Yeah, Bilal Coulibaly. Sometimes, obviously their first round pick from last year. Sometimes locks guys up, and the Belalcatraz. Okay, so the Belalcatraz is becoming a thing. Corey Kispert, this guy kills us every time.
yeah. Kispert is all-time white boy.
A little JV revenge game,
Yeah, no, I don't think there's a single arena we're walking into where we're favored. Like, I don't think there's a single. Like, you go to Portland, like, whoever's on Portland's gonna cook us. I'm sure they got Delano Banton.
Whoever's on Portland's gonna cook us is crazy.
Shaden Sharp, a bunch of Canadians gonna step up.
Yeah,
the whole Liban Osman army here. Yeah.
Yo, Liban's profiled half that team, man.
Well, we got AJ Lawson. Here we go.
That's against the law, son.
Oh my God! All right,
shouts to Mark Jackson. That's an all-time dunk. That's an all-time play call, by the way. Ty Lawson dunked on, I believe, DJ Banga back in the day. It was Nuggets Lakers, and the call from Mark Jackson was, "That's so nasty. That's against the law, son."
Oh man, yeah. Someone in the chat said, "Yeah, Jeremy Grant. Yes, Jeremy Grant, the most forgotten NBA player in the league, is still in Portland." Yeah. Jeremy Grant will also cook us.
Jeremy Grant and that Tobias Harris group of like, we made the max for a long time and nobody noticed.
No, Jeremy Grant is like straight up chilling. Yeah, I forgot Scoot Henderson too, man.
Oh, not Scoot.
Scoot's gonna get us.
Goodness.
Yeah, I think my updated prediction might be Raptors finish 1-40 on the road.
We might need to. Okay, that's not possible. Let's be real. That's not possible.
What do you mean that's not? You think it's not possible? You actually think it's not possible that they don't win? And we're not doing this right now, but like you don't think they're actually not possible that they don't win another road game this season?
No, hold on.
I think
there's no way. I'm gonna pull up the 7-win Charlotte Hornets or Charlotte Bobcats, which
this was a shortened season too, by the way.
7-59.
Yeah, this was a 66 game season.
Okay, let me see their splits. I'm on
the chat is with me and saying that it's very possible. Yo, shouts to the 140 gang. That's what we're called now. Yeah.
The 140 gang? What does that even mean?
1-40, because we're going 1-40.
They had 3 wins on the road.
Okay. Yeah.
The 7-win Charlotte Bobcats had 3 wins on the road. I actually feel like, this should be a good bet between us. If the Raptors actually go 1-40 from the road or something, like, I don't know. Like, we should have to eat some hot dogs on air or something.
Hi, guys. I have some records for you.
Oh, what's up, producer?
I'm not 100% sure. I am Googling frantically, and hopefully these are
don't
true.
Use StatMuse, man. That got
it's
me
not
StatMuse
today. The Sacramento Kings, in their 1990-91 season, went 1-40.
What?
The Denver Nuggets in 1997-98, 2-39.
Yeah.
Los Angeles Clippers, 1986-87, 3-38, Washington Wizards 2010-11 3-38.
Wow.
Yeah, there we go. I think
Okay,
right
but
now
There might be more
bar-
since. I don't think so, but yeah.
the bar is 3-38, man. The bar, I think the most they can get to. I'm gonna crack up after all this if they beat Cleveland tomorrow.
No, if they beat Cleveland tomorrow, it'll be the biggest upset of all time. Like, there should be a Jonte Porter investigation into what the Cavs did last night. Like, no way. They
It
threw a
would
game
not
if
be
they won.
It would not be the biggest upset of all time.
No, it might be a biggest upset of all time. I don't know, man. They got
Oh my god! All right, someone's telling me to eat my PSA hat, so please give your awards.
My last segment idea is we should come up with a new pizza party. Last year was 3 wins in a row for a pizza party.
Yeah,
I feel like we should set a new pizza party.
3 good defensive stops in a row. If in a Raptors game if you can clip, because you love watching the games the next day thing, if you can clip 3 straight great defensive possessions.
I mean, you and I know we just recorded our Game 7 Raptors-Sixers championship React pod earlier today. We cannot sully the name of the Raptors' 3 straight defensive stops with what they're doing this year.
I'm actually going to go. I was going to offer this, but Johnny has it here too. I think 3 coaches' challenges won in a row.
That's a good one too.
Because it did start with Darko, so I feel like it should be somehow dictated by Darko. I think that's fair.
Oh my goodness. Who do you think is going to bring him the pizza, man? Scottie, who he uses every challenge on? It should be.
Yeah,
I feel like it should
I'm tapping out.
I feel like it should be.
3
This is where
stars.
I remove myself.
Yeah, fair enough. All right.
3 stars.
3 stars. Streets are saying wrap this shit up and give me the 3 stars right now. 3 stars from tonight's Raptors game. I thought they actually took a step in the right direction, but what do I know? Your 3 stars from this game. I'm going to give the first star. I'll give the first star to IQ. I actually really liked IQ's play tonight. 22 points. I like how aggressive he was. Only took 12 shots, but I thought he took the right shots. He was aggressive in transition, took some quick ones as well. Pull up threes. I thought he pushed the pace in the moments where he could. 22 points, 5 assists, 7 of 12 shooting, 3 of 6 from 3, 5 of 6 from the foul line. I liked how he got downhill as well. The Knicks are not that strong defensively. We know that. But also at the same time, I thought IQ had a good game against his former club. Your second star, I'm going to give that to Scottie. 18 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 blocks as well. That's what I like the most, to help defense. Again, in the first half, the Raptors actually played some pretty good defense. Like, they were right there. It was watchable. They were in the game. It's 4 points. They were watchable. But yeah, 18 points for Scottie in 36 minutes. Again, I think you would just like to see him sort of like be aggressive at all times offensively. And honestly, I feel like he's just sustained this kind of effort throughout the whole game. Maybe in the second half, he definitely faded for me. But first half, I thought he played a really good one. And then your third star, Chris Boucher did have 10 points in 2 minutes in garbage time. Obviously, he's in that Darko doghouse again. But I will ultimately give the third star to Davion Mitchell, because he played 2 separate 10-second shifts, and both times he just came in, pressed the whole length of the court, took crazy damage in terms of just the physicality and sort of just sacrificing his body, and both times he got a stop. And if you play for me in 2 shifts and you get 2 stops, you're almost there for a pizza party at that point. So shouts to Davion. Obviously, he's not playing either. He's also in that doghouse, but again, only a number of guys can play. It is what it is. By the way, I feel like Davion could actually help a lot of teams. For example, the Knicks, for example, they could use a Davion who just if you're in the East, you got to guard these tough point guards, Dame, Tyrese, and you just need somebody who'd be solid for you for 10, 15 minutes off the bench while your starter rests. I actually don't see why you shouldn't call the Raptors about Davion. I'm actually serious. Your Gerald Henderson award winner tonight, it's got to be Landry Shamet. The Knicks only got 14 points off the bench in total, which is kind of hilarious, but also at the same time, they don't use their bench. But he had 8 points off the bench. It felt like a lot of those were pretty good shots, and a lot of cuts back door, a lot of reverse out finishes, cutting along the baseline. But he played a good game, so shouts to Landry Shamet, who feels like has been in the league for a very long time, but he obviously went down to the G League, came back. I got a lot of respect for that, so shouts to Landry. Your most important guy, the reminder, most important guys, brought to you by Greta Bar YYZ. Hit up 590 King Street West if you're ever in the mood to have a fun night out. Great food, great drinks. A lot of games as well. It's a great barcade. And of course, it's a place to go pre-game, post-game, during the game to catch all your favorite live sporting events. Your most important guy from this game, I would give it to Chris Boucher. You know what? Most important guy, Chris Boucher. This is why I like. You know what? yeah, you're out the rotation again. And you got another chance. It didn't work out. He didn't hold on to the spot. Doesn't really feel like the guys ahead of him are like also like holding down the spot or anything. It's not like Kelly is like far and away surpassed what Chris gave us this year, or even Bobo obviously on the year, But Chris still comes in, and for 2 minutes, he's just a rock star. Like, yeah, it's a 30-point game, but he's going to knock down a three, and he's going to celebrate it. And then he's going to take the next three because he's aggressive and he's hot, and he's going to make that as well. Then he's going to get a steal and run the other way for a layup. Like, I just like Chris's swagger tonight. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, it didn't change a single thing other than just a point differential, but salute to Chris. That was actually a pretty fun shift, and this game ultimately is about entertainment at the end of the day. So that does it for the Raptors Reaction Podcast. Alex, appreciate you for popping on. Tomorrow, we're going to bring on, my Asian correspondent, Samson Folk. He will be coming on to talk about DHO's Chicago action and also probably dim sum. And I know you'll be seething, you know what I mean, watching from afar. But Raptors will play Cleveland.
Chicago action. What is that? Going on a bachelor party with Cash and having deep dish?
No, I'm jealous. That's fine. What it is, man. Shouts to Cash as well. But yeah, we'll be back tomorrow. But thanks everyone for listening. Of course, if you like this chat, just continue to like the stream, tap in. If you hit subscribe, of course, that's the best way to get our notifications, because we will be going live after every game. And of course, we will also be giving you a break, because on Friday, we will be talking about that 2019 team again. And, I feel like we can all use a little bit of nostalgia in a season like this. So thanks everyone for listening. This has been a Hello and Welcome podcast presented by Betway.